Not too long ago, the exchange of a handshake or a hug was an expression of a bond which was a widespread culture in most societies. Ironically, this seemingly harmless social gesture, which dates back to centuries ago, could spell doom in today's reality. The reason is not far-fetched. The world seems to have succumbed to new regulations that contradict age-long traditions. Clearly, self-isolation, quarantine, and other presentations of COVID-19 have had their moment in time. Flipping back through the pages of history gives one a sense of how past pandemics have reshaped societies in profound ways, with millions of people paying the ultimate price. It begs the question of what the world will become after COVID-19. Now, let's begin the chronicle of global epidemics with plagues of Justinian that spelled terror in bold letters. The pandemic, which happened between 542 and 546 AD, recorded about 100 million deaths. The source of the disease was traced to rats and fleas. The disease afflicted the Byzantine Empire and the Mediterranean port cities, killing up to a quarter of the population, with about 5,000 people dying daily. Clearly, there were many more rivers to cross, as another disease known as the Black Death, which lasted from 1347 to 1350, unleashed its own version of terror on the world's population. The outbreak ravaged Europe, Africa, and Asia, claiming about 75 to 200 million lives. The plague, which reportedly originated in Asia, allegedly jumped continents via rats that so frequently lived aboard merchant ships. And since ports were the major urban centers at the time, it provided a perfect breeding ground for the bacterium to flourish. The Great Plague of London also made history when the epidemic ravaged London from 1665 to 1666. The actual number of deaths is suspected to have exceeded 100,000. Reports have it that the decline of the plague was ascribed to quarantine. Apparently, mankind has been observing this medical practice for centuries gone by. Evidently, more pandemics hounded societies with little or no resistance from science. One of such diseases was smallpox, also known as variola major. Smallpox hit the world with a resounding blow. The disease reportedly existed for about 3,000 years and was traced to the Egyptian Empire around the 3rd century before Common Era BCE. The global spread of smallpox left survivors blind, sterile, and with deep-pitted scars on their skin. The disease is said to have claimed about 60 million lives in the 18th century and killed another 300 million globally in the 20th century. Smallpox was finally eradicated by a vaccination program led by the World Health Organization. This breakthrough is regarded as one of the greatest triumphs of modern medicine. We are not done yet. The Italian plague that occurred in 1629 to 1631 recorded about 1 million deaths, while the Antonine plague, which occurred in 165 AD, claimed 5 million lives. China, as it turns out, has been linked to devastating plagues in the past, including the third plague pandemic that occurred between 1855 and 1859. The disease, which erupted in China, spread to all inhabited continents, killing over 12 million people. The plague was finally traced to bites from rats and fleas traveling on steam ships. Nonetheless, the world had had many battle lines to cross. Those who believe that cholera is a 19th century disease will need to hear this. Apparently, cholera has been around for a long time and never went away. The first outbreak was recorded in India in 1817. It is termed the world's longest-running pandemic. In spite of efforts to curb the disease, WHO data still puts the figure at a staggering 120,000 deaths each year. The cause of cholera is traced to contaminated food and water. For the next 3 centuries, outbreaks of plagues occurred frequently throughout the continents with infamous widespread mortality. Yellow fever was another disease that devastated the world in the late 1880s. Statistics indicate that a total of 150,000 people lost their life during the pandemic. There is another health condition that has given health practitioners cause for concern. You're talking about the flu epidemic. Yes, it's very prevalent in the northern and the cold regions of the world, spread across continents. WHO puts the number of deaths related to flu epidemics at 300 to 500,000 yearly. History is replete with strains of flu that claimed millions of lives across the continent. The The ones that got the world's attention include the Russian flu, the Asian flu, the Hong Kong flu, the swine flu, and most recently, the avian flu, also known as the bird flu. And wait for it. Scientists have known of the human coronavirus since the 1960s. The Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, MERS, and the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome, popularly known as SARS, all belong to the coronavirus family with similar symptoms to COVID-19. But the flu that the world will not forget in a hurry is the Spanish flu pandemic. The disease, which ravaged the world in 1918, reportedly killed more people than the First World War. Spanish flu was recorded as one of the most catastrophic pandemics globally, with a death toll that rose to 50 million. It is estimated that about 1/3 of the world's population became infected with this virus. There is the HIV and AIDS pandemic, which had quite a wide spread. Going by WHO data at the end of 2018, HIV and AIDS has reportedly killed over 32 million people globally since the first threat was recognized in 1981. While the death rate had remarkably reduced, about 31 to 35 million people are currently living with the condition, with the vast majority located in sub-Saharan Africa. How could we forget Ebola virus disease, EVD? The disease is linked to bats and is said to be one of the deadliest viral diseases. Ebola was first discovered in 1976 in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The outbreak between 2014 and 2016, which began in Guinea and spread across borders within weeks, pushed Ebola to the status of a global epidemic within months. Though the world has had its share of plagues that bled it out, it always gets back on its feet. With COVID-19 currently fanning its wings across the globe, this pandemic not only caught the world in a nightrobe, it is also redefining the elephant in the room. While some countries may recover, others may be on life support for a long time to come. For what is worth, the coronavirus pandemic have had most people pressing the reset button. While some are rebuilding their relationships, others are rethinking their priorities. Bottom line, the world may not remain the same, as COVID-19 has clearly moved the goalposts for mankind.